Good evening, everyone. I'm Shakayla Alvarenga. I'm the Director of Public Programs here at the Mob Museum, and thank you for joining us tonight. And welcome to a mob wife's story, survival, and escape from the Chicago outfit. So while most stories about organized crime lean into the headlines, the violence, the arrests, the trials, tonight we are stepping into a different door entirely, the front door of Lisa Swan and Frank Calabrese Jr.'s home. Lisa Swan's latest book, Chicago Swan Song, isn't just another mob tale. It's an intimate invitation into the reality of being married to the mob. Her father-in-law, Frank Calabrese Sr., Frankie Breeze, to those who feared him, ran lucrative gambling and loan shark operations as a made member of the Chicago outfit for 4 decades. His reign of terror finally ended through Operation Family Secrets, a case made possible only through the testimony of his son, Frank Jr., who also joins us tonight. So, of course, this is definitely a rare opportunity to hear directly from both Lisa and Frank about their journey through the shadows of one of America's most dangerous crime families. It's not just about surviving the mob, it's about reclaiming a life that was never supposed to be theirs. And let's be honest, this might also be just a bit of a group therapy session for ex-spouses. Okay, so let's begin with a brief introduction from both Lisa and Frank.
Hi, I'm Lisa, ex-wife of Frank Calabrese Jr. I grew up in Galwood, a small little corner of Chicago. My mom and grandmother came over on the boat from Trieste, Italy, and my dad was from Wisconsin. I grew up with my grandparents, white collar, quiet, unassuming. My mom and dad divorced when I was in the 3rd grade. My mom chose to live downtown Chicago. My dad took off back to Wisconsin. I was painfully shy, had abandonment issues. My younger life wasn't so warm and fuzzy. I was always wondering where I fit in. Frank?
Oh, okay. Thank you, Lisa, for coming tonight and, telling everybody your experiences. So I know most of the people in here, and who I don't. My name is Frank Calabrese Jr. I have a residency at the museum here to tell my story. My story is a family story, but our family business was organized crime. I was born into the Chicago Mafia, and I followed my dad and my uncle into this life for 20 years. I'm half Irish, half Italian. What I talk about at the museum is how this life started to change me, how it changed my dad, and how, in the end, we tore our families apart, and it wound up being the biggest mafia trial in Chicago's history. And I had to make the painful decision of going against my own father.
So Lisa, we're going to start with you and just going off a little bit about what you had just mentioned about your upbringing. Let's talk a little bit more about that, about your upbringing, just the instability that you experienced. Share just a little bit more about your early life of growing up in Chicago.
So in Galwood, lot of Italians there, and it's peppered with mafia, loan sharks, bookies, and all of that, just became normalized. I had a lot of friends. I tried to hang out by people's houses that had, a lot of food, parties, music, laughter, because my house was so quiet. And it was a tight-knit neighborhood. Everybody knew everybody. If there was a strange car that drove through the neighborhood, you knew it didn't belong. So it was a great experience. It's just my home life was not, it wasn't warm and fuzzy. I always had to do my own homework. I had nobody to help me because my grandmother was Italian. My grandfather couldn't answer any of the school questions, so I a lot of times would just, not do well in school because I had no support system.
You mentioned that everyone knew Frank. So what did you hear about him before being able to meet him personally?
So I used to see him, and I knew who he was because of his family, his dad. But he wasn't the typical, neighborhood Italian. He didn't these, dems, and does. He didn't, use that kind. He was just fun and full of life, and he was like a big teddy bear, and he was just, had a kind heart, and he was always smiling. And that was your nickname when you were little.
One of the nicknames, Smiley.
Mm-hmm. And that's how he was. And, I would look at him across the bar, and I thought, wow, he's just so handsome and so cute. I know. But there was things about his family that I heard, and I usually didn't like to listen to chatter like that, and I'm like, I don't believe it until I see it, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. So how did you end up meeting Frank, and what were your first impressions of him?
Well, what was your favorite line before you really met me, when your friends would say,
So my one friend, I was like, oh my God, he's so handsome. I wish I could meet him, And she looked at me like I had two heads, and she's like, do you know anything about the family, the father? And I said, how bad could it be?
Turns out.
Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, tell me about the first time.
Because when I said I was painfully shy when I was younger, that followed me way until adulthood. So I met Frank once. He forgot who I was. Mm-hmm. I met Frank twice. And, same thing. He didn't remember me. Oh, hi, nice to meet you. I'm like, oh, jeez. So the third time,
it's going to be a long night.
The third time I met him, I go, yeah, I met you before. And I just waved him off like that. So then, I just forgot about it. And then a mutual friend of ours, I had gone to downtown Chicago.
Okay.
On a Sunday night, and this girl, Rose, that I hung out with, she calls him, not telling me, and says, hey, Lisa and I are P.S. Chicago. I think she might need a ride home. He comes walking in, and I'm like, how is this happening? And he came and was talking to us, and and she goes, oh, I got to go, bye. And I'm like, son of a gun. But we were talking, and the conversation just rolled, and we just, there was no
connection.
Absence of words. It was just, it flowed.
Comfortable.
Yeah, it was very comfortable.
Frank, what were your impressions of Lisa when you remembered?
Well, she was a very pretty girl, and I didn't know a lot about her. I knew a lot of her friends. We knew the same people. But again, going to that night, this girl kept trying to set us up, and she did. She lured me there. She left, and me and her, we just sat and started talking, and we did. It flowed nice. We got to know each other, and one thing we both had in common, but we didn't realize, because we were both trying to get out of something that we were in, and we seen each other as that way out. And then, short time later, I invite her to come to the Italian American Club Christmas party. And, with all the guys there and everything, 700-800 people, and she knows people there, and she's talking, because I got to go around and shake everybody's hand and give them a kiss on the cheek and listen what who says, and she fit in so good. I was like, oh, this is good,
Oh, but wait. So one of the girls that I was sitting with from our neighborhood, I said, I'm going to sit out here out front and see how long it takes him to notice I'm not at the table. Hour and a half.
Well, again,
Go on.
my dad was very controlling, and there was a lot of people I had to say hi to, or things might not end out good. So, and I'm thinking this is great, but she did. She did put up with it, and then
And we started dating after that. The funniest was when you first got a little bit of an idea when we went ice skating that night.
Oh my God.
And it was closed to a private party. Well, that don't stop Frank.
Yeah, and I said, oh, it's a private party. And he goes, just follow my lead. And I'm like, what? So he parks his car. He starts talking to people in the parking lot. Hey, how you doing? This and that. And he goes, just follow me. So we go into this party. I'm lacing up my ice skates going, oh my God, and I got my head down. I can't look at anybody because I'm not supposed to be there. And he's talking to people like he's known them.
And they had a free buffet.
And they had free food. And not only did we stay, we invited another couple.
So that's how we first started out.
Yeah. Do you remember the first time that you met his father?
Yeah, that was date number 3.
Okay.
So we went out 3 nights in a row, which was very unlikely for me.
Mm-hmm.
Me too.
And
I'm trying to paint the scenario.
So he's like, we're going to go to my dad's house for dinner. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
And I brought very few girls home in front of wasn't it for Christmas or close to Christmas? Or?
Yeah. It was
so
around
this was
there.
big.
So we go to the big house in Oak Brook, and we walk in. I'm like, wow. And I meet him, Frank Sr. And mind you, I've heard all these not great things about him. He was so jovial, just so happy, and just showing me the house and everything. And I'm like, I didn't understand the bad things people were saying, because here's this man that seems polar opposite. But little did I know it was the dual personality.
Yeah.
So I got to meet the good Frank Sr. And, dinner was great. And, he sat at the front of the table, and he's got the big folded dish towel for his napkin. And I remember that at some of my girlfriends' houses, very, very Italian girlfriends. And the father, the grandfather always sat at the head, and you had that big napkin to wipe your face.
So Frank eventually proposes. It was a memorable way. Tell us about that.
Well, it really wasn't. So we were at New Star eating Chinese food, and we were talking, and we knew that we really liked each other and everything, and it was just going so well. And we were sitting having dinner, and he goes, so I don't know, do you think you want to get married? I'm like, yeah, dipping my egg roll and eating it. But then when the ring came along, it was at his father's house. His father wanted to be a part of that.
Okay.
And so his dad stuck the ring in a plant. And he knows that I have a green thumb, and I like to plant stuff and flowers and all that. He goes, Can you look at this? Can you see anything wrong? And I'm like, what the heck? And I look, and then there's the ring in there. So it almost felt like Frank Sr., because he's standing in the back, and Frank Sr. was so excited.
Yeah. I was excited too, but I wasn't excited that my dad would take all this control over everything.
Yeah.
And I was such in fear of this man and idolize him so much at the same time that I'm trying to appease him. I'm trying to appease Lisa. I'm just trying to appease everybody, but I was excited about getting married to her. It's just I wasn't real excited about the way I had to do it.
How involved was your father in the wedding planning part of it?
He was very involved. There was a list. We were going to have this outdoor wedding at a property with these little finger stuff and all this fancy stuff. And then
he's like, why do you want to do that? What if the weather's bad? You got all this stuff. Why don't you have it at our friend's restaurant? He just got the new hall. And you know what? He was right about that, because we wound up having a wedding where it was tables full of food. There was music.
It was awesome.
It was I think how many people got married there after our wedding that went to our wedding?
Oh, yeah,
because it was done well. He just didn't want it to be fancy. Well, another reason he told me, but I didn't know this till later, and he said he didn't want to invite the whole mob to this wedding because he knew the FBI would be there every. So he told most of the guys that, my son can only hold 200 people in it, hall, and he doesn't want to invite all those people. Again, putting me out there. Mm-hmm. A lot of people were mad, so we just had the basic crew in there and his basic bosses. That was it, but the whole mob wasn't there. Planning it, and then he's acting like he's paying for it. Well, I get that big bag envelopes, right? Well, guess where all that goes? To him to pay for my own wedding. And then his new wife, gives us a 3D, like of a dining room set or something, and we were supposed to get it later, which we never got.
We never got it.
The shower, he's sitting with me and my buddies outside the shower. He's like, well, you don't go in the shower. That's not what a man does. It's for the girls. Then her girlfriend comes in and get me to go in there. And he's like, no, he's not going. And I'm, so this was, it was just steamrolling more and more.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So early in your relationship, Lisa, you had stated that Frank Sr.'s errands for your husband were just an annoyance. And then you sort of noticed that Frank would just leave whenever his father called. Did you know at that time, earlier on in your relationship, like what was happening?
So I knew Frank would go, because I would go with him. Mm-hmm. Because I never got to see him because his dad just took up all his time. So I don't know if his dad at one point got tired of me taking his time.
A lot of times he felt like you were a threat.
Yeah.
That you're going to take me away from him.
This is a threat. So I would go with him, and I'd ride in the car, wait in the car while the heat was running, because it was, always winter in Chicago. And I would take rides with him to do stuff like that. And then whenever we wanted to make plans or vacation, he had to get clearance from the tower for us to be able to do something. And I'm like, this isn't right. You're an adult. Why do you got to ask him? Well, I didn't understand how involved. And at one point, I remember when we were dating, I said, are you in danger? Are you doing bad things? And he said, if the pencil hits my foot the wrong way, I might get stabbed with the pencil, but that's it. I'm like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking, loans. Okay, got it.
And I didn't want her to know my business. I didn't want it to go deep to protect her. I figured I'm going to work this out somehow. I got to get away from my dad. I want my family. And, at first it was just Lisa, but, I didn't want to do this anymore. I had businesses. I had stuff. I'm trying to get out from under his control. And it was rough. And then I had to answer to Lisa because, she's my new wife. She wants to know what's going on, and you can't just say, don't worry about it. I'll see you when I see you. But there were times I had to tell her that. Because I couldn't tell her where I was going or what I was doing. That puts her in danger.
Well, then I thought he was a jerk.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is great.
This is the therapy session that I was
having. Yeah.
Frank, for people who don't know, can you bring some more insight into what exactly you were doing during this time with your father?
So in Chicago, like I talk about when I speak, you're really not supposed to bring your kids into this life. You're supposed to make a better life for your kids. In my neighborhood, a lot of our fathers are in this life. In Chicago, it's more underground than it was on the East Coast. They were trying to get away from violence, go more legit. Well, my dad starts me out with little things, collecting some things, passing some messages, but now I'm in my early 20s. And when I'm with her, I'm in my late 20s, so I've already done a lot. I was already supposed to kill my first guy, which my uncle stopped me from doing that. I was getting into violence. I would go with my dad or my uncle when they had to hurt people or do stuff. I'm doing book work on a weekly basis. I mean, I was really getting involved because my dad kept bringing me in further and further because he's seen a lot of him in me. And I'm getting really involved in all of this. And then when I met Lisa, I'm starting to see that my dad is changing. And because my dad was part of an elite hit team, that when the mob bosses wanted somebody dead, he was the guy, his crew, our crew were the ones that would take care of it. And when I see Lisa, and I'm thinking, you know, I need to get out. I want to start a family. I don't want to do this. I'd rather work. I always worked all my life.
Now, your daughter, Kelly, she was born 1990, I believe.
December of 1990. Yes.
Yeah. How did you...
I'm sorry, September of 1990. Anthony was
and
in
that's
December.
recorded.
No, Anthony's in December. Hey, it ain't the first time.
Frank, how did you juggle, you know, your family life with everything else that was happening?
My dad, he'd go down to Florida for the winter. And I remember calling him. I was so excited when we found out that she was pregnant. And I'm like, Dad, you're going to be a grandfather. And there's not much talk on the other end. And that really made me think. And, you know, in the long run, he looked at my child. Instead of him being a grandfather, he's looking at it as, this is another obstacle that I'm going to have to deal with his wife to take him away from me more. You know, now I got a daughter, and I'm starting to think, the first thing I did, get rid of my motorcycle. You know, I mean, because I don't want to, you know, I got a daughter to take care of. I mean, it would really, really change my mindset about life and what I was going to do moving forward. But the hard part is, how am I going to get away from my controlling dad?
Lisa, what was it like to watch this unfold? You wrote that around this time, Frank Sr., he really started to tighten his grip with Frank and pulling him into more and more responsibilities. How was that for you?
So, like he said earlier, he just couldn't tell me things, so he would just say, I'll be back later. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. And his time was just taken up all the time. I noticed Frank was disconnecting, you know, because his dad just took him apart layer by layer. And his father was just relentless with, you know, taking up his time, and you need to do this, and, you know, and I started seeing how he was starting to get aggravated with his dad. But he always had to answer to him no matter what. So that's where I found out and noticed about his cocaine use. And I realized later on that that's what he used to deal with his father. You know, it was kind of like it would take him down a notch. Like you said the other day, or yesterday, he said, my relaxation was to order a pizza, have a couple beers, do 2 lines, go to bed, and hope tomorrow's better.
Yeah.
And I just watched him just, you know.
And you were so against drugs.
So against drugs.
Cocaine.
Yeah. But I noticed him, you know, just sleeping a lot. And he just did everything he could to try and escape. And then he would have good days.
Yeah.
Once in a while, you know, he'd have a day where, you know, he's trying so hard to be normal. And it, you know,
it was hard.
It was a stretch.
I had to fix Frank in order to take care of my family. And I had this person that at one time loved so much, but yet now he's turning evil. He's trying to control me. I see no way out. And let me tell you something. Powder cocaine was the most embarrassing thing I've ever done in my life. The good thing, you know, what putting her through, putting the kids. But the thing was, I'm a survivor. I've been clean. This July will be 28 years. Don't like to talk about it, but you have to. Thank you. And it was tearing me apart. It was tearing me apart, and I didn't see no out. I didn't know what to do. And I just slowly dug into this more and more.
Frank, when did you first realize that your drug use was taking a toll, maybe not just on yourself, but on your family as well?
Well, first, Lisa went to my brother, she went to my mother, and she's trying to confide in them, and they didn't know what to do, and they, my brother was not one to take action on anything. He had to talk with me, and at first it's denial for me. No, man, I don't have a problem. This is just to escape my stuff. And then it started with her. Then I had the kids, and then, you know what, there was that point where I'm like, you know what? This is no good, man. I got to find another way out. Well, actually, the way out I found was when I got indicted and knew I was going to prison, because now I'm going to get away from my dad. I need prison to turn my life around because I was in a bad spot. Yeah. And I'm going to get away from my controlling dad, turn my life around. When I come home, life is going to be different. So that was my out. But yes, it was a problem, and I didn't like it, but I needed that to survive, to get me through those days at the time.
Let's talk about the FBI raid that happened. Take us back to that moment.
So the kids and I were sleeping, and I think by this time we were already sleeping in separate bedrooms, or I was sleeping with the kids.
I don't remember. You might have been sleeping with kids. But let me set it up real quick, and then I want you to come in there. So I'm out the night before. I'm doing my little bit of cocaine, having a few drinks. I go home, I go to bed, and I get a call at about 5:30 in the morning in July when it's getting light out. And it's like, hey, this is Agent so-and-so from the FBI. We got the house surrounded. You come outside. Click. My buddies are screwing with me. I get the call again. I'm ready to, don't hang up. I look out the window. I could see the house surrounded. I go, listen. I'll come downstairs right away. I said, but please, my wife and kids are sleeping. I don't want them to get scared. So I'll be right down, okay? No problems from me. Now I'm going down the stairs and I'm thinking, I'm partying with cocaine. I'm selling it small time. Are they here for a RICO act to arrest me for the mob stuff? Or are they here for the drugs? If it's the drugs, it's a death sentence in Chicago. So that's my concern. They come to the door, I let them all in, they got their guns, their jackets, and the first thing I'm saying is, hey, whatever you guys need. I says, my kids are sleeping, my wife's sleeping, but what's this for? They go, oh, it's an old mafia case. I was like, whew, this is good. This is good, not the drugs. That's all I'm thinking. Now you can take it from there. That's how crazy our life was.
So I hear him talking downstairs. We were in a 2-story house. And I'm in my nightgown, and there was a laundry chute, which was a bench. So I sit down, and I'm doing this. And he goes, oh, don't worry. I'll be back later. It's just the FBI coming to get me.
For an old mafia case. Well, I couldn't say, oh, they didn't know about the drugs. It's the mafia stuff.
And the look on my face, I was like, okay. He goes, call my brother. And they go, we got him. Call my dad. We got him. And he goes, I'll be back later. Don't worry. And so I was like, okay. And I'm like, am I dreaming? So I call my sister-in-law, and she's hysterical because his brother made a big deal when they went to get him. And so I call Angela. We go to Oak Brook to Diane's house, Senior's house. And I'm just, I don't know what's going on in my world. I had my grandmother come pick up my kids, and Diane is like, well, did you call your lawyer? And I'm like, I didn't know I had one. This was all foreign for me.
What did Mr. Semino tell you? Her father, who was the ex-police chief. What did he tell you? If you got guns at home, get rid of them. And
he's like, do you have guns? And I'm like, I don't know. Get it all out of the house right away. And I was like, okay. But I remember the FBI asked you, do you have any guns?
Yeah, I had 2 legit guns that I gave them.
And then there were others in
guns.
The closet that were not legit, so got those out.
Where'd you put them?
I had someone come pick them up.
Oh.
One of his friends. I'm like, you gotta get these.
Wow.
Which later on, when I talked to her, I said, "Oh, Lisa, I wish you wouldn't have done any of that. I didn't want her to get involved."
Yeah.
And I got a little upset that somebody else was telling her what to do.
Yeah.
Yes, don't worry. Got a lawyer. We'll handle all that. I was just trying to protect her. And then what did you say later on about how, I'm so nonchalant about it? And
nonchalant, he calls me, and I'm like, oh, and
call it from the prison.
yeah, and this is before cell phones, so I got to wait for the phone on the wall to ring.
Yeah,
and he calls me. He goes, oh, I'll be home in a little bit. Don't worry, everything's going to be okay. Really, Frank? And it was just, this was like old hat for him.
Yeah.
And for me, I don't know how to act. I don't know what to say. I don't,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna sit tight and wait.
So what happened, Frank, after the raid? You go down,
they take it downtown, and I'm laughing because we're driving down the expressway, and we're all handcuffed in the cars, and I'm watching. Now we pass my brother in one car, my dad in the other, and I'm thinking, this is a good thing. Because he's going to realize that my younger brother, he's getting him in trouble. My brother never did nothing. He did a little bookwork when me and my uncle didn't want nothing to do with my dad no more. He shouldn't even be in this. And I'm thinking, my dad's going to get it. Unconditional love, right? I screwed up. I got my kids in trouble. Let's work this going forward. So I'm thinking this is a good thing. You go down there, you sit down, and they're like, well, you can make a phone call. So I called her. And I didn't want her to get scared. I go, and I'm real calm, Lisa, everything's okay. Don't worry. I'll probably be home tonight. There's a chance I won't come home till Monday. I have to go in front of the magistrate to see if they, bond us out. But everything is good. Just don't do nothing, the kid's okay. So, we did get bonded out that day. Mm-hmm. Okay, later on. And then I came home. And I didn't want to tell her anything. I didn't want to scare her anymore. I had already put her through enough between the drugs, between me, where I'm at. But I looked at this. This is going to be good. This is going to be good.
And then tell us about how you eventually turned yourself in. What happened there?
So when you get indicted, it's usually a couple of years before you go to court in the federal system. So we all went to see this lawyer that was a family lawyer and a family friend. And he told my dad, he says, it's going to cost you $250,000, but I won't put anybody out, any cases on. This is what you're looking at, all this stuff. And I remember my uncle outside telling my dad, we need to get the kids off. Okay, they shouldn't be on there. And I'm like, yeah, Dad, if we're on the street, we got somebody on the street. And my dad says, my dad's looking, and he don't really want to do this. He don't want to pay the lawyer all that money either. So things got rough between all of us. There was a lot going on. Lisa talks about, how about when I'm running and hiding from my dad, jumping out a second floor window.
My God.
I'm walking around with a gun in my pocket because he tried to kill me. And, it's getting bad in this 2 years. Really bad. And I'm trying to avoid him. So naturally with my powder cocaine thing, and I'm not working, and he took my businesses from me, and so I found out that in the federal system there is a drug and alcohol program. It's a 500-hour program, and if you take this program, it's a great program. Plus, you can get 18 months off of your sentence. So I says, you know what? I want to do this. So I called my pre-sentencing officer, says, I want to come clean with you. I have a powder cocaine problem, and I want to get this thing. She goes, well, you're going to have to come in. If you pee dirty, I'll set up a court date you'll violate. And I was like, good, this is going to work. She calls me 2 weeks later, and she says, listen, the government, they don't believe you. They said, I've been watching the Calabrese family for years. You guys have nothing to do with drugs. You're just trying to get that time off. I says, but I said I pee dirty. She says, yeah. She says, but they're going to give you a 30-day outpatient, and then you're going to go in, and you can do your time. You know what? I says, thank you so much. I appreciate the help. And I'm like, talk to my lawyer. He said, just avoid them. They'll come and violate you. The marshals will arrest you. They got to give you the program. So that's what I did. Now, the bad part, and real quick, is she calls my dad when I'm not calling her back. And she's just trying to, she says, your son, she can't tell him about the drugs, but she goes, he won't call me back, and I'm scared he's going to get in trouble. My dad's thought, he's going to cooperate. So he says, don't worry, I'll get my son into you. So I used to do this fest. You're there, the kids are there, and I'm on the fryer, and I'm thinking, okay, the marshals are going to come and arrest me. They grab
I get grabbed by the hand and I look up. It's my dad. I got 2 guys trained on you. You pull away from me right now, and I'll kill you right here. It's okay. So I came clean with the drugs. I came clean with the program because he said, "What's going on? Why ain't you getting a hold of her?" And I told him, "Dad, it's fine. I'm ready to do my time. In fact, I need prison." And I told him everything. He had tears in his eyes. We talked for hours that night, hugged it out. A few weeks later, I went to prison. And that's why when I turned myself in, because I had to, I violated. And me and my dad made promises to each other. I'll never do the drugs again. I'm going to go to prison, change my life, do my time like a man. But one thing I ask you, Dad, when I come home from prison, please don't ever involve me in this anymore. I just want to run my restaurants and be a family man. And he gave me his word.
How did you feel, Lisa, when Frank was sentenced and he went away? Did you get a chance to visit him?
What about court that day? What about my dad?
Yeah, we did go visit him. I did go to court, because I was working right down at the Board of Trade, so it was near the federal building. So I would go, and it was such a circus with Frank Sr. And the theatrics that he put on, like he's an old, frail man. It was just, it made me so mad because this guy didn't deserve what he was getting.
But I needed prison.
He needed prison, and we had gone to a concert not too long before he was turning himself in. And I remember I was sitting at the bar with a couple of the girls, and I said, "You know what?" I said, "Frank's going to go in, and he's going to be away from his dad, and he's going to get good. He's going to get healthy, and he's going to get good. And when he gets home, I'm going to be like a dirty old sponge that needs to be thrown out because, there was just so much going on." And he always said, "I'm going to be fine. It's you guys I'm worried about because you're going to have to deal with everything." But I did take the kids to go see him at MCC, and that was terrifying. Just the elevator ride up to the floor that he was on was just something I don't ever want to do, especially not with my kids. But the kids missed him so much, and he later told me that he rather we didn't visit because it was so hard for him when we left.
I was on a mission to change my life, and I didn't want to pull my family into that prison. I mean, we talk on the phone all the time. We do all that.
Yeah, and and then when he was in Milan, Michigan, we would take road trips. A couple of his friends would bring me and the kids out there, and it was tough. It was very tough. And, the kids, after we would leave, they'd be so sad. And, the aftermath after the visits was really more than I could handle.
Yeah.
And I think I only had you guys come like 3 or 4 times
Yeah.
in those 3 years because I didn't want to put them through that. The first time, the kids, they wanted to know where I was at because we didn't tell them. So I said, bring them down to the prison. So she brings them down, and I'm there with an orange jumpsuit on. And, "Daddy, what you got? What's going on? This is a prison." Kids, there's 2 kinds of people in prison: bad people, people that make mistakes. Daddy made mistakes. You got to be accountable. When you coming home, I couldn't say 3 to 5 years to a little kids. So we told him, "Daddy made mistakes." Mommy's telling him, "Daddy made mistakes, but we gotta, he's got to." I said, "I got to take classes to know I never make mistakes. I'm going to get A's like you guys do in school. But let me live here for a while so that I can get this done." And that's what we would use. But we taught them that through life is that there's consequences for what you do. There's a fine line between an orange jumpsuit and street clothes. And so that was the kind, but it was hard. It was hard. And at the same time, I'm telling her, "Don't worry, everything's going to be good. I'm going to change, and everything's going to happen when we come home. Please hang in there." And like I always says, I didn't suffer in prison. She suffered. The kids suffered. The ones around you, the innocent ones that love you, those are the ones that suffer.
Frank, tell us about your decision to help the FBI during this time. you're kind of speaking on it now, but what led you to that final choice?
The led me to was my time is going great. I'm ready to transfer out to MCC because they don't let you stay there. There's one prison I don't want to go to in the whole system. Well, naturally, they send me to that one where my dad's at. And, I wound up in transportation in the hole for 16 days, only 16 days. But I used that time wisely, dug down deep. And, I lost the fear of my father at 37 years old. And I said, I'm going to face him. And I wound up in the same prison with him. But I used everything he taught me to make sure that he was going to keep his word about not bringing me back in this. So for 8 months with him, every day I used it, and every day he failed. And eventually, when I came to the realization that he has no intentions of ever letting me out of this life or letting go controlling me, I had to make the painful decision. So I contacted the FBI. That's why I wrote that infamous letter, because I had to be cautious. And, the FBI, when they came out, they thought maybe I wasn't doing good time. I got in a fight with my dad. And I said, and then they realized I was doing good time and I had enough with my dad. So I actually offered them a deal that if I volunteer, I'll do all my time, pay all my fines, no immunity. I want to volunteer to help you keep this sick man locked up forever. And that's where it started.
Did you get a divorce while in prison?
Yeah.
Okay.
He didn't want a divorce. I did. And so I had to, which was very unpopular in the neighborhood, I sent the papers to jail.
And I told you, don't let anybody know because they're not going to side with you. I understand, but, and we communicated through that. If that's what you need to do, I understand. Because I just felt so bad, because of the mistakes I made, you can never take them back. But I thought, you know what? She's going to see. I'm going to change. And when I come home, I'm going to try again. I'm going to make up for all the stuff I did and be a different man to her and my kids, because that's all it was about. That's what got me through prison.
Yeah, but who really changes? The saying, tiger doesn't change its spots. I wanted to believe he was going to change. I really didn't believe he was going to do a total 180.
Yeah.
And do everything that he said he was going to do. I mean, he beat the cocaine. He kept positive while he got diagnosed with MS, and he conquered his dad, got rid of the fear of his dad. And, he got so good. And it's just like, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
People will talk a lot that they're going to do this, this, and that. Rarely do they follow through.
Yeah.
And at first when I got that the divorce papers, it hurt. And then my manipulative mind, because believe me, I've changed my ways, but all that evil's still in me. I have to process. Everybody laughs at me that's around me that loves me because I'm always processing. But I processed the right way for the last 25 years, and I'll constantly. So I'm thinking, I'm going to have my buddy. I know if you send some legal documents into prison, it has to go through the legal office. Well, she sent them right to me. So I was like, well, maybe I'll have my buddy sign it. This way it's not real, But then I'm like, well, wait. Hold it, I mean, I can't do that because, big thing about this life is control. So you're always thinking, maybe I'll try to control her, So it was hard, but I understood because my mind was clear now. I'm free of the drugs. I'm working out every day. I'm eating right. And I could see what she's saying. And she still has feelings for me, but she don't think I'm going to change. And yet, but she sees this and she's thinking of the kids.
Yeah, and I had to think future for the kids and myself, that, if he comes home and we get together and it just totally doesn't work out again, that leaves me in the same spot. So I had to move on without him. That's the only thing I had. And I had no monetary help.
Yeah.
I didn't get the proverbial envelope of cash. I got a ransom note.
Through my father.
Through his dad.
What did it say?
His friend Johnny Marino came to my house that I still lived in, and he hands me this note, and I open it up, and I said, John, what is this? And it was typed out. Save me all save all your bills, electric, utilities, kids' school, and, we will give you the money. And I'm like, who's this from? Lisa, I can't tell you. I go, John, what is this?
It was all on terms.
It was all
on
conditional.
terms. Yeah.
And I said, decline.
Yeah.
I didn't want that money, and I struggled. I mean, I could have really used it, but I struggled. My grandmother was there. My grandmother who raised me, she was there and helped us.
And I had my legit friends, not my legit friends, come and bring her money.
Yeah.
Which I paid them back when I got home at a later point. I mean, we struggled, and yeah, I mean, it was hard, and I couldn't do anything because I'm locked up. I tried, and she's concerned about taking stuff from me at times, thinking that it's going to tie you back in.
Well, that's the MO. So I'm like, I don't want to accept anything.
Yeah.
Because I needed to get moving.
Yep. So by the time of the Family Secrets trial, your kids were teenagers now, 14 and 16. How did you even begin to explain all of this to them?
Well, they knew.
Tell the story that leads to that of when I first came home to the halfway house, and we're gonna go out. We're gonna go to church on a Sunday. I got a couple-hour pass. We're gonna get brunch, and her and the kids picked me up for the first time. I'm at the halfway house.
Oh my God!
And this to me is just like, I've been waiting for this, and I'm gonna show them I'm in the right place now.
Well, let me preface it with, if my grandmother found out, she would have killed me. That I'm even talking to him.
Because she was conditional with the money.
Conditional,
you talk to him,
like
I'm
crazy.
cutting you off.
Yeah, you're out. You got to move out. So I put the kids in the car, and and I was on the fence with everything. Yeah. And so we go pick him up, and he's so excited, and the looks on my kids' faces, they were so happy to see their dad. And so we go out to breakfast, and we're sitting at the table. He pulls out a baggie of white powder. And I'm like, and I think we all stopped breathing for a minute. He goes, "It's my protein powder."
I was very, very healthy at the time.
And I was like, oh my God. So anyways, we had a nice day and then, we dropped him back off.
Well, she knew my intentions, but I wasn't trying to force anything on her. And the one thing I always told her was, no matter what happens, Lisa, if you move on, you marry somebody else or something like that, it's very important for us to always be close. And, our kids are the most important thing. And that was big on her, and that was big on me. But as we're hugging goodbye that day, and the kids are in the car, she's shaking. And I go, what's wrong? And she's crying. And she says, my blood pressure is real high. I go, what happened? She goes, well, it's you. I go, why? What did I do? She goes, well, nothing, but I'm scared you're going to kill me because I divorced you. And I go,
yeah.
Where did you get that from? I go, I've never raised a hand to you or anything, have I? No. I started having tears. I go, I don't understand. She goes, I don't know. I see it in movies. People talk.
Well, and I had so many mixed emotions.
But what did I tell you?
I loved him, and I hated him, and I wanted to be with him, but I was afraid I was going to get kicked out of my grandmother's house. But then my kids wanted. I mean, I was being pulled in 50.
What did I tell you?
I don't know.
Oh. I said, Lisa, you're the mother of my kids.
Oh yeah, that.
I will. All that. I says, I will never hurt you. I says, you got to pass. I says, but I says, if you're really scared of me and you think that I'm doing stuff wrong, just call the marshals. They'll come and violate me in a second. So that was the old joke all the time as we moved on.
Yeah.
Oh, Frank's not having a good day. Don't make me call those marshals. It came up, but she became more relaxed. And
we loosened up.
Yeah.
And then we decided to try it again. But we weren't going to get married again. We were getting along. There was a lot, but we said, we can communicate now. We went to a counselor. What did the counselor tell you?
Oh my God, the counselor. So I didn't want to go. And this counselor, Frank did most of the talking. And the counselor, like after the third session that we had, before that, the session was ending, and Frank's like, "Oh, we're getting to such a good spot. Can I pay you more money so we can keep going?" Mm-hmm. But, there was someone else waiting.
That's not how it works with counseling.
No, that's not how it works. So I remember this counselor's name was Dr. Dye, and he was a little guy.
Frail guy from Northwest.
And he's, and he's nodding. He goes, "Frank definitely has an agenda." Mm. And he wanted his family back. That was Frank's agenda.
And then we decided to move to Arizona. And we're going to try it. I'm home 2 years. It's 2002 and it's June. I went out there and I found a house. And we got this house, this nice little house. And we figured, okay, we're going to start over. And the thing that I remember is we're getting in the car to leave. Packing the kids, the dog, Lisa, and just as I'm ready to get in the drive, I just got this chill going through my body. Am I doing the right thing? Am I going to pull them into my craziness again? Mm. And I'm like, you know what? I told her, I says, if it doesn't work, I says, can always move back to Chicago, whatever, and I just said, let's try it. And that's what we did with the kids.
And he didn't know, but I was thinking the same thing. What the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
But I wanted to give it a try. He was the old Frank that I first met.
Yeah.
Working jobs, having businesses, got close to becoming a multi-million-dollar with all that skin stuff and the software for that music and everything. It was close, real close, and going all the time. Everything was going great. But there was always that old stuff coming up. And she knew now that I'm cooperating against my dad. And she's scared.
Oh my God!
And it's like it's deja vu now.
Yeah.
Frank, everything's okay. Don't worry about it. Is the mob going to come and get us? You're not worried?
So we lived in a townhome in Scottsdale, and the FBI moved him to Tucson.
Mm.
Right before the trial.
Before the trial, and Kelly and I and Anthony would be walking the dog, and we'd see I remember it was a Jeep Cherokee with Chicago plates driving real slow past us, and I'm like, so you got paranoid about everything.
Of course.
But also, when we had the pizza place, we had a pizza place, and it was in a mall where there was an anchor grocery store, and we had this little pizza place. We had all the neighborhood kids working for us. By now, my nerves are shot. I'm like, okay, I got these innocent kids working here. And, I developed migraines. I was just so stressed out with everything. Yeah. And I kept noticing this car across the parking lot, backed in, facing us. And someone sitting in there, and I go, hey, you want to go drive past that? There's someone spotting us. Mm. And it was a private investigator that his dad hired.
Okay.
And we're going back now. I won't tell her what's going on, but don't worry, it's going to be okay. It's funny because the private investigator reports later on, they wrote everything about me. I got this house on a dead-end street. I got all this stuff. He's very hard to surveil. He does this, he does that. So they couldn't follow me. They didn't know what to do. And then eventually Lisa was like, you know what? We're closing down a pizza place. Get a hold of the FBI. They're going to put you somewhere else until we get through this. And,
okay.
Yeah.
I listened to her and did it.
I was
And
nervous.
it was rough because I felt like it was all going through again.
Yeah.
Yeah, he felt like we were going backwards. Mm-hmm. But, for that time, it needed to happen.
So during the trial, Lisa, what did you learn about Frank Sr.'s criminal activities that you hadn't known before?
That I had murderers at my dinner table.
Yeah.
I did not know. I just thought they were, he was a loan shark, maybe a bookie, and that was so normal in our neighborhood. I had no idea of all the murders he committed. I had no idea how he committed those murders. And there were innocent people, and I mean...
How involved I was.
And how involved he was. And I knew nothing. I kind of felt stupid. You know, how did I not know any of this? But, you know, they didn't talk about it. And Uncle Nick's daughter worked with me. She didn't know anything either. You know, and he got, how many murders? 6?
Well, my dad was
7?
convicted of 13. My uncle confessed to 14. But me and my uncle knew my dad.
You just don't know.
And you had no idea.
I had no idea.
This is what I tried to keep from her, but again,
And he did a great job.
Yeah.
well, it affected our whole family. It affected everything. And
And Frank Sr. terrorized the whole family.
his life changed him.
Just terrorized.
He turned on his whole family. And he tore us all apart.
What was both of your reactions when you learned about his death in 2012?
I said, make sure it's him.
So I get a call from a friend of mine, and he tells me that your dad passed on. So I have this emotional, I'm like, you know, I always still love my dad. I just hated his ways and wish it would have been different. So now I called the FBI. I said, I heard my dad died. We said, we didn't hear nothing. I find out my buddy got bad information. I went to work, told him my dad, and I told everybody, I called my buddy, I go, where you get your information from? Well, then he did die on Christmas Day in 2012 in a terrorist lockdown in Butner, North Carolina, in a special wing for the worst of the worst. And I felt that, you know, what I did to my dad, he's going to haunt me one day. He's going to come and get me. But when he died on Christmas Day, it brought me back to when we were young, and he was a good father. Never brought the street in the house, and his family was everything. And Christmas was his day. He did everything. And I felt that day, he finally got what he did to the rest of the family. Not me. Because today he tells me, I know you. You're just like me. Please don't make the same mistakes with your family that I made with mine. And I actually used that. I used the kids. I used her to make sure I walk that straight line every day. Plus, I don't want to go and get in trouble, because what if he is in hell and I'm wrong and I got to spend eternity with him? No way. And then where we, you know, everything's going good with me and Lisa, and she wants to have dinner with me one day at this Mexican restaurant, and she wants to have a drink or two. Am I jumping or?
It's okay. Yeah.
No, let me stop there. I'll keep you guys in a little suspense.
My God.
I'm sorry. Sometimes I jump. Please go ahead.
Well, you guys did decide, you know, that when you tried the second time around, that it just wasn't working. What happened there?
Well, she decided that.
Okay. Whatever.
Yeah. So we should have went through more therapy.
Yep.
I had a ton of triggers, and you know, I always keep myself busy. I'm always working, always doing stuff with the kids, and my grandmother moved out to Arizona, and so he and I, we were communicating, but it wasn't in the right way, and I really felt like we were just roommates. You know, that there wasn't that bond that I needed.
And so much past.
Yeah, and we should have gone through therapy to work through all that. It was still lurking. And yeah, I mean, he was a good guy. You know, he wasn't doing
everything
anything
I
wrong.
said I was going to do, right. And I'm thinking everything is great.
But, you know, I had triggers, and I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And I wanted to separate and still remain friends, because that's how we work out the best.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Frank?
Well, that's when I got invited to this dinner. You know, and it was a little blindsided because I wasn't thinking. Again, the communication, we're on different levels, but we think we're communicating. And most importantly, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do, plus. And I'm thinking, okay, this is great. And then she says, you know, are you in love with me?
I says, well, yeah. She goes, Frank, I know you would die for me and the kids. I know you love me, but seriously, are you in love with me? Because I'm not in love with you, but I love you. At first it's my ego. Well, what do you mean? And then I thought about it, and she was right. She made sense of it. And she had to have a drink because she was concerned, and to let it down, and, when I thought about it, we started talking about it, and we talked about it in depth, and I said, Elise, you are right. There's just too much past. We love one another, but we're not in love. She told me, do you really want to go the rest of your life without being in love? We get along so good. And the kids, and so that's what we decided, and that's what we did. And we learned through this process over the years that, our communication is important. Our kids are important, like I said, all the way at the beginning. No matter what happens, I always want to see her be in a good place. She wants to see me be in a good place. We support each other when there's other people in our life. It's very important, all that. And believe me, we butt heads sometimes, but like she says, not arguing, it's not disagreement. It's just
we agree to disagree.
And that's how our life is now, and I have somebody in my life I've been with for 8 years, and and she supports this, and it's important. It's important to get along, because there's so many people out there today that you don't communicate. You divorce, and then you start fighting, and guess what? That's not going to hurt me and her. That's going to hurt the kids. That's the only ones it hurts. And our kids are happy. Our kids are in a good place. Our kids are the ones that give us the orders now. We listen to them. I'm very transparent because I'm always paranoid that I'm going to wind up acting like my dad did. So I have these people around me, a small circle, and they all support me as long as I'm doing the right thing, and I'm happy like that. And I don't want to speak for you, but how do you feel today? How do you feel?
I feel very grateful. That was a lot of stuff to go through, but I feel very grateful for our friendship, and I feel, really lucky that we were able to navigate through all of that, and our kids are good. Yeah. Good kids, and they love both of us. Like Frank said, I would do anything for him. He's my best friend. And I'm very thankful for that.
And Lisa, you said that you've finally come to this place where you can talk about your marriage without bursting into tears.
I'm surprised tonight.
I know, right? I had Kleenex.
What do you think has helped you to get to this place?
Definitely my kids, doing right by my kids, my friends. I have a ton of friends, and they are just the best support. They're your chosen family. Watching him turn into the person he is, and watching him do everything he said he was going to do, and just know that my circle, I'm very peaceful with it.
Yeah. Before we open it up to the audience, is there anything else that you would both like to say to each other after everything you've been through?
And go for a drink later?
I like that. It's funny. For me, it's about letting go of control. It's about trusting. It's about listening to the people that are important to me. And we will talk sometimes, and she'll bring out something that I couldn't remember, that I didn't know. And sometimes it gets emotional, because I didn't know I was in that spot. And she gave me a bunch of letters that I sent to her in cards while we were away. And I was explaining, and if I can, read it real quick. And this is a card that was to her, and it's a basic card. And I said, "Hi there. There aren't very many good cards from prison here, but I thought you would just tell you to keep up the good work. Take a look at the picture and tell me what you think. I miss the three of you, and there is never a moment that I am not thinking of you all. Everything I do here in prison, I stop and think before and make sure it'll be a positive effect on the four of us. If it doesn't, then I won't do it.
It hit home the day you told me that there was no father figure in the kid's life around. There's nobody around. And I guess the last year or so that I wasn't there. There was no father figure. There wasn't a man figure around you, Anthony and Kelly. At least when I come home now, I will be that and more. When I come home, the three of you will see a complete man, and I know this is what you all need. You know, I want you to know that my heart belongs to the three of you, and I will prove it all to you. I'll prove it to all of you when I get home. I will fight for what's mine, and I will not let no man alive that tries to take that from me. And that was my thought, you know, and in these letters, I'm reading them all, and I'm like, oh my God, and it took me back. And this is stuff I haven't talked about that I didn't know. And, you know, but, you know, it was always about, you know, them. I knew how they were suffering, and it just tore my heart apart that there was nothing they can do. Men need to be needed, and when you're not needed, you don't know what to do. I could fix it, but I couldn't.
Frank, what has your, last question for you, what has your journey to redemption kind of looked like? You talked about the residency here at the museum as well. What has that looked like for you?
It's been great here. I feel that, well, you know, prior I got a job with Marriott. We had to close down the pizza place. I needed my insurance for my MS. I've been fighting that for 25 years, naturally, and I'm going to win. But, you know, I felt that I want to give back so much more. And at the museum here, it's just, it's constantly, I have to be busy. I don't want to die with regrets, and I want to live with integrity. And I fight it every day. That processing is what works. And I feel good. I love the museum. I feel that I belong here. And I think they're doing great things here. And appreciate everybody here tonight, too.
Yeah, definitely.
Round of applause for our panelists tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. Now
Okay.
the questions.
Oh, questions.
So we have just a few minutes to ask any questions for either Lisa or Frank. There's one over here. We can start there.
So when will your kids come?
Oh.
Or would they ever, or would you want them to?
That's their choice. We don't want to force them because they're still, you know, there's certain things they don't want to know. But Lisa told them one time, you know your dad since you got home from prison. You need to know your dad for what he went through to get to where he's at now. And so they haven't read the book. They read parts of it at times. My son has spent a lot of time when I was writing the book with me, so he knew. But I don't want to subject them to any of this unless they wanted to do it.
Did y'all ever talk about it?
Somewhat,
and it's a hit and miss with them. You know, I don't know. Then sometimes so they're not. We leave the decision to them if they want to. They're good kids. They don't have any of the evil in them that I did. They've never done nothing wrong in their life and never would. And to me, I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have to worry.
Lisa, did you have a relationship with Frank's mother, and was it a good relationship?
Yeah, Dolores, she was awesome. She was the best cook and baker. We always accepted the invitation to go eat at Nana's house because it was always dynamite. She loved the kids. She went through a lot. She went through a lot with Frank's dad. So she, I don't want to say she had quirks, but she liked her time to go do her stuff. But we were always there for the holidays, and she was awesome. Yeah. She just recently passed. And that was tough, but yeah, I love Dolores. She was a
Everybody
great person.
loved her.
Yeah, she was a lot of fun.
Yep.
This is for the both of you. I know that you talked about how your father passed in 2012. Do you still have the fear of someone might pass by and pick up where they left off? Does that or even if that's not present, did that, because the body still holds like the score, does that still sometimes resonate, and like you'll jump in the night like, oh, this might happen, and then you remember that it's not happening anymore?
No, I don't live my life in fear. I have to live my life. I didn't make a decision at the last minute. It was well thought out. I knew that there'd always be a possibility that somebody might try and come. I mean, my dad put a $75,000 hit on my head. Okay, but he died. But, you know, I'm not here at the museum talking about anything anybody's doing illegal now. I'm not talking getting anybody in trouble. When I go to Chicago, there's certain places I won't go. I know some of the guys in there. I know what they're capable of. And if I walk in there, they got to do something, because then they look weak. And I'm living my life. At 26 years old, when the Spilotro murders and everything was going on, I didn't think I was going to live to be 30 years old. I just turned 65, and I'm just living my life. If somebody really needs to come and get me, but I don't feel that. I
Not
don't
here.
feel that.
It's not here. Lisa, what about you?
When Frank Sr. was still alive, I had nightmares. He chased me once through Elmhurst in his car. So, yeah, I was very fearful because it was just me and my kids and my grandmother.
What about driving in the rearview mirror?
Oh, yeah. So a lot of times this is funny. Frank Sr. drove a white Bronco like OJ. So, and there was a lot of those at that time. So I'd be driving and I would see in my rearview mirror and I'm like, oh, he's following me, you know, and it was just paranoid. I was just paranoid. And because they knew so many people in that neighborhood, everybody knew everybody. You know, they knew when you left the house to go to the grocery store. You know, your every movement could be, you know, documented. So yeah, I was nervous, I'm not gonna lie. After Frank Sr. died, he told me a million times, you really don't have anything to worry about. If they're gonna come for anybody, they're gonna come for me.
Do you think writing your book has helped you with your healing? And
It was very cathartic, yes. It was tough because I had to dive backwards. And the time that I was writing the book was COVID. And I was a general manager of a hotel down by the airport, which is like having 6 newborns. You know, someone's crying at all times. So it was difficult. And so I would go up in a room and do a Zoom call with the guy I wrote the book with. And some days were a lot tougher than others, especially, you know, when we had to talk about my kids, you know, and what they were going through. Me, you know, trying to get away from him, you know, divorcing him. And those were some tough conversations where I would need a day to just, you know, come out of the chaos and just try to relax. But yeah, and you know how actors say, oh, I can't watch my own movies? I can't read my own book. It's hard. It's hard to go back.
Yeah.
So, but this was good for me. This was fun, you know, talking about all of this, and I really enjoyed this.
And she's got a lot of stories. She was a little nervous at first getting up here and opening up all her, you know, her stuff. But if you guys read the book, she's
Oh yeah.
she'll really go into a lot of stuff. It's very interesting and more detailed. And we only had, you know, a little over an hour here tonight, but she's got a lot, and it's good. It's good.
Okay, we'll just do one more over here.
My question is to Frank. How did it feel, Frank, when you had to actually go face to face and testify against your father, and did it give you nightmares?
Nightmares, no. Not sleeping, yes. I would talk to her on the phone, and I wouldn't sleep. And so when I walked in that courtroom, I hadn't seen my dad for 6 years. And I walk in, and I don't want to look at him because I know he's going to give me those threatening looks and all that, or he's going to try. I don't want to give him a satisfaction. But I glance out in my corner, he aged. I wanted to run over there and hug him and save him. But once he gave me those dirty looks, I knew what I was there, and it brought it out. It's the hardest thing I ever did. I wish I didn't have to do it to that point. But it became survival. Where do you draw the line? With an old family member. And, like I said, it was well thought out, and I put it in my heart. It makes it easier, too, to walk in a courtroom and do that when he put a $75,000 hit on your head.
Yeah.
But it's hard. One of the things I do at the museum is I relate to a lot of people that went through physical and mental abuse. My middle brother, Kurt, is going through that right now. He was diagnosed with some kind of PTSD or something. He can't keep a job since he got home. And he just never let go of that fear of my dad. And it's killing him right now. And he tried at one point to do what I did, but it didn't work for him. And here's a poor guy that he never did nothing wrong. And my dad ruined him like that. And it's just the way it tears this family apart. I was put in the same prison with him for a reason. I thought the FBI put me there. They told me, no, we thought your brother was fighting with your dad, not you. So I was put there for a reason, to put an end to this. And I did.
So as a reminder, Lisa will be signing copies of her book, Chicago's Swan Song, in the courtroom waiting area. So many stories in here, and it's a book I highly recommend. And so, a round of applause again for our panelists.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.